All right, I want to start the podcast or YouTube, depending where you're watching, with Senator John Fetterman getting a silver-plated pager from a terrorist.
How about giving him a beeper?
Oh, it's a.
Now this is a silver-plated beeper. The real beeper is like 1/10 the weight. It's nothing.
Really?
Yeah, but it changes history.
You know, when that story that story broke,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I love it, and now it's like, thank you for this. Yeah, no, all right, no, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh yeah.
Hello, my name's Jason, Generational News, and let's talk about a couple things today. First of all, Israel's back in the Gaza Strip. They broke the ceasefire Tuesday, March 18th, although they've really been breaking the ceasefire pretty much every day since they started the ceasefire. It's just that this is getting a lot more attention, of course, because they killed 170 children in one night, 404 people in one day. They've killed over 1,100 in 36 hours. So that's why it's getting a lot more attention than their, a couple here, a couple there over the last several weeks. And they also have been starving them, no humanitarian aid, no medical assistance since March 2nd. So they starved them, didn't provide anything medical, and then they started killing them. So right now they're saying about 70% of the casualties are women and children. And if you see any of the videos, it looks pretty accurate. I've seen piles of children, unfortunately, but like I said, we have at least 170 that are killed by them as they claim to be going after Hamas. And unfortunately now with Trump, not that Biden was great, because half of the reason that Gaza is the way it is right now is because the Biden administration continued to allow them to destroy anything at will and claim that it was, they're trying to get Hamas, the less than 1% of the population. And instead they've killed about the same amount of children as what they believe how many Hamas members there were originally when they started, which is usually like 25 to 30,000 according to U.S. intel, and they've killed 20,000 children so far to attempt to get Hamas. But we know it's more than that. It's Netanyahu's opportunity. Since October 7th, they used that. It was a sad day, of course, and there were a couple dozen children who were killed. We just don't know who did that because Israel did kill a lot of their people too, trying to rescue their people. And but they use that propaganda to basically go full throttle. And I said that early on when I started my TikTok account. And they had an opportunity. Netanyahu saw an opportunity. They made a mistake, or they let it happen. We don't really know, but they used that as an opportunity to go full throttle, and it gave them more of an excuse from everybody as they sympathized for them to go extreme. And now, of course, we're at this point where every organization that deals with genocide has said this is a genocide, but it continues to be supported by U.S. Administrations, Trump and Biden, and it's going to continue. I think right now it's only going to get worse. And, as they move now they have ground forces are in there. They are in the Netzarim corridor again, where it separates North and South Gaza. And they are super aggressive, and they're only going to get more aggressive. They had said they're only going to get more aggressive. All right, let's talk about the Trump administration and ICE. So every day it's a new story of how they're arresting everybody, it seems like, except U.S. citizens. But yeah, they seem to be arresting everybody lately, and they're messing up a lot. We'll see if they continue this trend, but right now, Mahmoud Khalil was the one that really got people's attention. Luckily, his lawyer was able to keep him from being deported for now, and his court case is going to be in New Jersey. They were hoping for New York. New Jersey's where he was first put, so that's where they're having all the court stuff happen. But luckily, it's not Louisiana, very, very red state, so it may have been, at least gives them a better shot, I feel like, New Jersey and versus Louisiana. But so we have that, and that's the case, of course, is creating a lot of protests, basically across the world. But then we also have Fabian Schmidt, a green card holder since 2008, coming back from Luxembourg. His partner, he just disappeared. We couldn't find him. And eventually ended up in a hospital after ICE detained him, didn't let him have water, his medication. He ended up sick and dehydrated, and I think he passed out. And so he ended up at the hospital. So he's still detained at this time. They're continuing to arrest people with really no reason, and so they're just trying to find anything to deport people. And so we have that. With that, there's another one, Dr. Rasha Alaway, and she's from Lebanon. she's a doctor, and she's been working here since 2018, and with the H-1B visa. And they are saying now that on her phone they found images of Iran's supreme leader and then the former Hezbollah leader. She went back there to see relatives and also for the funeral of that former leader. She doesn't have a criminal record, so she's just she's she's a fan of the Hezbollah leader, right? And but that doesn't make her a criminal. But that's enough for Trump's administration to get rid of her. And so she was already deported. Her court cases are still happening, but they deported her fast before the judges could even stop it. And so we have her. We have one also in Virginia that just happened this week. So this arrest was Dr. Badar Khan Suri, and he was arrested outside his home in Alexandria, Virginia. He's a Georgetown University graduate and instructor there. And his crimes, if you want to call it that, crimes for Trump law. He is a student visa holder, and he's pro-Palestinian, so right there's a trigger. And he also is married to a Palestinian-American woman, but his wife, her dad, so his father-in-law, is allegedly an advisor to Hamas. So he has no criminal record. He has not done anything wrong, but his father-in-law allegedly is an advisor. So he's kind of guilty by association. But, we don't see us arresting Netanyahu's son hanging out in Florida, even though his dad's wanted in like 80 countries. But, this is what they're doing. They got enough to go with getting them deported, basically being not from here and being pro-Palestinian. That's pretty much the requirements right now for some of their low-hanging fruit for them, And so, eventually maybe they'll come after the actual American citizens that are pro-Palestinian. We'll see. We won't get deported. Maybe we'll end up in the El Salvador prison for a year like some of these people are. But also, speaking of the El Salvador prison, there are some families coming forward as they recognize their family members on these, this promotional video they did. And a lot of them are saying, my relative is not part of a gang. He has a rose tattoo, and some of them are being arrested for having a rose tattoo. That doesn't necessarily mean you're a member of any of the gangs, but they're Hispanic with a rose tattoo is what it comes down to. Most likely is why they arrested them. And so a lot of them don't have any criminal records, and they've admitted that in an affidavit, and that ICE has, that they don't have a criminal record other than they got to the United States illegally. But that's not worthy of a year in prison. And that's, the prison they're going to, El Salvador, is not, it's some harsh conditions there. So it is a newer facility, so it looks nice and clean. But, I was reading up on it, and they don't, first of all, they have their bed frames, like massive numbers in one jail. Their beds, their bunk beds are all metal. There are no mattresses from what I was reading. There's no blankets, no pillows, and so nothing. So you're basically sleeping on metal. You're allowed to be out 30 minutes a day to pray or exercise, for Bible study or whatever, and that's it. So, and it does house a lot of actual gang members from El Salvador, like MS-13, but, and that's their country. They do what they want to do with their prison system, but now we're putting people over there that may not be criminals other than they got into this country illegally, which is not worthy of at least a year in jail under harsh conditions. So, it's, send them back to their country if they broke the law as far as being here legally, but sending them to prison, that's a whole other thing. And now we're paying another country to house people. That's just, I feel like there's a lot of situations that are going to go bad because of that. Unfortunately, we're not going to hear about it probably for a year until these people get released, and then we're going to hear all the horror stories and find out that, this person was just trying to make some money for his family, and was only guilty of crossing a border illegally and had to go through those harsh conditions. So, so we're in some interesting times. I feel like if you are a green card holder, student visa, you should just not travel outside the United States. You should be careful with any situation you're doing. I mean, I have a friend who's H-1B visa holder from India, and so he travels all the time. So I feel like I got to warn him, like, he probably already knows, but like, hey, don't travel. He's always leaving the country to go see his family in India, but he may have to sit still for a little while, or not come back into the country for a little while because of all this stuff that's going down. Because it's, they're finding any excuse to get people. So, and the other day they even arrested a man who is an American citizen. I think 54-year-old out of Chicago. I think it was a case of mistaken identity, but he was still detained for 10 hours. They had his wallet with his identification and stuff, and it still took him 10 hours to release him. It was definitely racial profiling, and so that's kind of where we are at this point. as Trump administration continues to make America white, and through the military, that's a whole other topic, and through deporting as many people as he can. So, I mean, he may have some success of less people trying to cross the border because of the harsh conditions if you get caught. But the reality is there's still a lot of people here who are just working hard, and a lot of them are going to get punished severely for the crime of showing up here and working, doing the jobs that a lot of Americans just don't want to do, and getting paid lower wages. And that's where we are at this country until I feel like there's a bigger uprising, Maybe we need to be like the French or the French farmers where they just dump manure in front of the government buildings. But right now, any aggression, I feel like, other than protests, has been directed at Tesla more than anything. And so I think we're a little spoiled as Americans. We've had it good for a while as far as overall success. We don't have things like universal healthcare and stuff, but overall we've had it decent where we're not willing to give up our life in risk jail or anything by being extra aggressive. Only a handful of people are willing to do that. There's only so many Luigis in the world. And so I think it has to get a lot worse in this country before you start seeing Luigi copycats left and right. But, or just people being super aggressive, breaking into things and stuff like that. But I think we're a long ways from that. Still, we have to suffer more before we get super aggressive. All right, let's talk about this third story. This is about DEI in the military. I'm a retired Army veteran, and I did 20 years. I was telling people I was part of the problem. I realized it after a while, and now I'm trying to be part of the solution and, tell people about my experiences. But, luckily even though I was an oppressor, an occupier, I didn't break any international law, at least. So I don't have that guilt, other than the guilt of being part of a bigger picture of destroying countries. So I do carry that guilt for sure. But, DEI, Pete Hegseth, he's a DEI hire. His highest leadership was platoon leader, which we all get as officers in the military at lieutenant status. It's the beginning. It's the first job. He's definitely not qualified for this job. He could do a good job. It's possible, right, without the experience, but he's not. And so, he has these tattoos that are definitely white nationalist leaning. I know some of his defenders will say, oh, it's just like a cross or whatever. But as someone who's in military recruiting before, just because you have something that has a different meaning, it doesn't mean it's still not like a gang affiliated or whatever. So for example, like a Celtic cross, I remember years ago, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And I was looking for a tattoo that was kind of more to my heritage. And then I was doing research and found out it was connected to white supremacy. So I was like, oh, well, I'm not going to get that. And Pete Hegseth's like, I'm going to get that for sure. I'm going to get this cross or these things. He's a white supremacist, and I think the proof of it is, his history, but also just the fact that he is now getting rid of everything. If you have the word gay in your in these images of our military history, it's going away. Anything black, anything non-white. So there was Navajo code talker, information that got deleted the other day. It's so obvious. Like, I don't know how Trump supporters can still be like, oh yeah, no, he's not doing that. Like, it's so obvious what they're trying to do. Also, why do you just want to erase our history like they were doing at Arlington National Cemetery this last week too? It's our history. Why would you just get rid of our history, right? If that's the case, then get rid of all the history. If you just want to do that, why are you just going to keep the white history, basically? It's very obvious what they're doing. It's not going to help their recruiting, except for getting more white people to join, maybe, some of the ones who are Trump supporters. But it's not going to help with the diversity in the military, which is important, I think. And I'm using my platform to tell people how to get out of the military if they haven't shipped out yet. Because whenever you join, you typically don't leave for several months. And so there's time. And the reality is somebody might have joined. Most people join just for like the college money, or they're poor, or they're kind of lost in life, trying to figure out what to do. But, most people don't join to be part of a white militia that's going to do border security and, attack our allies like Canada and Greenland. Most people didn't sign up for that. So I'm using my platform to bring attention to that. They want to get out of that contract. It's really easy, actually. If you haven't shipped out, you just got to tell your recruiter if you're listening. And, you're not legally binding just because you raised your hand, did an oath. As long as you haven't gotten the airplane, you're good. So just so you know, or you want to tell somebody else. And that's coming from somebody who is the recruiting commander for half of New Mexico and half of Arizona. But yeah, they're making it white. They're making it border security. and they're turning into a little militia. So at some point, if you're in the military, you're going to have to make that hard decision. The way things are going right now, in this direction is going, you might have to, protect Trump against us, your own relatives, friends, family, and so I don't think martial law is too far around the corner. I feel like he's triggering us to do that, and I think it's only a matter of time. He's going to go for the low-hanging fruit first, the people who maybe are not U.S. citizens, who are pro-Palestinian protesters, and then eventually it'll be everybody else. So that's how it starts. But anyway, so that's what's going on in the last couple of days, and there's definitely plenty of news out there. I could spend all day talking about this stuff. There's so many things happening just with Trump alone, but or Elon Musk. But anyway, so have a good day.